What's up, YouTube? I'm Z, and this channel shows you the world through my lens. I was getting a lot of comments on my Alex Pereira videos. I appreciate that. A lot of people recommending different things, like checking out specific fights. So a lot of people talked about Israel Adesanya and their 4-fight kind of story, and then people mentioned like other stuff as well. I think the one that kind of got my attention, people were saying that I really have to see his rise, like how he became or like where he came from. And so that's what I'm doing today. And then I will check out some of those other specific fights after that. But this one is called The Rise of Alex Pereira. There was a lot of videos about this, but most of them were like 20 to 30 minutes long. And I was looking for something just a little bit shorter. This is just under 10 minutes. So we're going to check this out. This is from a channel called All Things MMA, and it says The Rise of Alex Pereira. Let's make sure we give them a subscribe and a like, and let's go.
Ever since Alex Pereira signed with the UFC in 2021, it seems like he's been destined to face off with Israel Adesanya for the middleweight title. Coming from a kickboxing background, not many believed that he would reach the top of the MMA world so quickly. But after scoring a brutal first-round knockout of Strickland at UFC 276, it was clear that the division had a new title challenger on its hands. But the story of Alex Pereira extends further back than
that left hand. Now, Strickland, I don't know if I've ever seen him fight, but I hear that name all the time. I don't know why I hear that name all the time, but I feel like it comes up all the time. But that left hook was nasty.
Had a new title challenger on its hands. But the story of Alex Pereira extends further back than his more recent successes in mixed martial arts. This is the rise of Alex Pereira. Born in 1987 in Sao Paulo, Brazil, Alex Pereira's upbringing came in the favelas, specifically in São Bernardo do Campo, an area of real poverty. He's of indigenous descent, coming from an area of Brazil that isn't directly of European heritage. At the age of 12, Pereira dropped out of middle school to take on a job in a tire shop, ending his time in the education system.
Pô, não tinha uma condição de vida.
No way. He dropped out of school. Now, before you complete that sentence, most people hear that and they're like, oh, like, he must have been in like college or university or something, and like he had to stop studying. Nah, like he dropped out of middle school. He was 12. Why? So that he could work.
In a tire shop, ending his time in the education system.
Pô, não tinha uma condição de vida legal, né? Meu pai pedreiro, minha mãe dona de casa. E comecei a trabalhar cedo, né? Em uma borracharia, com 12 anos de idade.
Show.
12 anos de idade, fazendo trampo ali de adulto, entendeu?
During this period, his dreams consisted of having the money necessary to purchase a car or a motorbike, a far cry from his eventual aspirations of becoming a professional fighter. In his teenage years, Alex Pereira began drinking, and drinking heavily, becoming an alcoholic for a long period of time, for the vast majority of his young adult life, in fact. But a major breakthrough came when he decided to kick his addiction in 2009, taking up the art of kickboxing, which helped him focus on something that wasn't destroying his health. As it turned out, the 22-year-old Alex Pereira was actually quite good at fighting.
That was brutal. I gotta check out more Glory stuff. Listen, like becoming an alcoholic as a teenager, and the fact that this man was working like an adult job, I'm assuming with adult hours at 12, is completely effed. Like that is a harsh background and upbringing. Wow.
Earning his nickname Poatan, or Stonehand, due to his natural punching power. After discovering the benefits of an active lifestyle, his battle with alcoholism started to turn in his favor. But that doesn't mean it was as simple as flicking an off switch in his mind. For the opening years of his kickboxing career, Pereira still struggled with his vices, only breaking free from them completely when he realized that he had a lot of potential as a fighter, which would have...
God damn, sorry. I'm getting caught up in the video highlights here. But I'm not surprised to hear that, because it's not like you can just flip a switch. Like, this is not an easy thing to fight.
Vices, only breaking free from them completely when he realized that he had a lot of potential as a fighter, which would eventually lead him to true greatness in the ring.
Aí depois eu tava treinando bem e já tava bebendo um pouco, né? Já teve uma mudança ali, mas ainda não era o suficiente, entendeu? E aí algumas coisas ali me atrapalhou. Eu falei, cara, eu tenho que parar de beber agora. Se eu não parar, eu não vou ser ninguém.
From this point onwards, he was a fighting machine, whose talents in the ring were now truly blossoming into something special.
See, look, I know we're here for the UFC or like the fighting stuff, the kickboxing and the UFC stuff, but that part was really important, because when it comes to those type of things, like you're trying to kick a bad habit, the only time you're going to be successful is when it really comes from inside. That's kind of where he was like, he felt that if he didn't make that change right at that moment, that he was going to be a nobody. So it had to come from there. That's fire.
Onwards, he was a fighting machine whose talents in the ring were now truly blossoming into something special. Just 5 years into his kickboxing career, he managed to take home Glory middleweight gold, winning the promotions tournament in 2014, putting his name on the map. Later that year, he took part in another Glory middleweight tournament, this time losing in the opening round by unanimous decision. But in 2017, Pereira would really start to pick up steam, going 2-0 over his future rival Israel Adesanya, before then winning the Glory middleweight championship, a belt.
I saw a lot of you comment that of the 4 fights that he's had with Adesanya, 2 of them were in kickboxing.
No, over his future rival Israel Adesanya, before then winning the Glory middleweight championship, a belt he managed to defend 5 times.
Whoa, 5 defenses. That's crazy. Sorry.
On a right hand, buckles Belgawi. He almost went down. Kid Pereira closed the show. Exploding
He doesn't know where he
over the
is.
right eye of Belgawi. And it's over. Instantly, the doctor says no.
Same guy again? Yeah.
That may be it. He won. Punch, walk off, knockout. And still, Alex Pereira, the middleweight champion.
Simon Marcus.
Simon was fighting backwards a little bit more, but I think
big
he's
knee.
hurt. That
And
left
a high
kick
kick.
landed.
And now Simon Marcus. Oh, and he got caught with a left hook. What a big bomb.
Yo, look where he came from with that left hook. The power
Oh,
behind
and he got
that. Look at
caught with
this.
a left hook. What
All
a
the way
big
back
bomb.
there. Oh.
And that's when
That's a
Marcus
lot.
backed up and got caught with that.
And still, Glory middleweight champion of the world.
Jason Wilness. This name is ringing a bell for some reason.
Ended up getting him that TKO finish.
Oh, high kick. Wow.
Oh, I think I remember this.
Pereira.
He finishes this with a knee after this.
My goodness, and he's busted Wilness wide open. And now Pereira go for the finish. What a leaping knee. Down twice. It's Jason Wilness. He doesn't know what's hit him. It's over. Easy work.
5th defense. This is the last
His
defense.
nose is already bleeding. And a left hook right at the bell. And that is it. Hands of stone.
Man, body, head, classic.
Pereira.
Keep it simple.
That's
Keep it
his
simple.
dangerous strike for your winner, and still, Alex Pereira.
Then, he attempted to prove his pound-for-pound medal by stepping up to the light heavyweight division, winning interim divisional gold before taking home the undisputed championship just a few months later. By this
Wow,
point, he
that's
was at the
beast.
peak of his kickboxing career, a well-rounded striker with one of the best left hooks in the game. Not only
I'm seeing a lot of left hooks in these highlights here.
he built up an impressive kickboxing record, but he also became the first fighter to hold 2 belts simultaneously. His pair of victories over Israel Adesanya were nice wins to add to his resume, but the greatest accomplishments of his time in the ring would come afterwards. And by the time he left the sport in 2021, he was a pound-for-pound top 10 member and widely regarded as the finest middleweight and light heavyweight fighter on the planet. But kickboxing alone did not make up the entirety of his goals in combat sports. During his time in the ring, Pereira, like his great rival Israel Adesanya, had been taking a few fights in MMA here and there, testing his prowess in the cage while learning the skills he would need to round out his game. However, in order to be a mixed
Yeah, because adding groundwork must be like a completely different animal. Like, I have only ever trained, when it comes to combat, I've only ever trained boxing. So even just thinking about adding kicking to it with kickboxing, I'm like, yo, I can't handle that. Then you take that and you're like, oh, but let me add some more. Now you got to wrestle on the ground. Like, I'm out.
martial artist, it was clear that there was a lot of work to do. When he made his MMA debut, Pereira was already 28 years old and relatively unskilled in the many areas of MMA, which he would need to improve in order to succeed. And sure enough, the weak points in his game were found out, and in the 3rd round of his debut, he was taken down before being submitted with a rear naked choke. Despite the unfortunate setback, he was not dismayed, and instead, he rallied, returning in 2016 with a pair of knockout wins in his home of Sao Paulo, Brazil, moving him to 2-0 2-1 as an MMA fighter. At this point,
You know what I really like about him though? I'm seeing it in multiple clips where he can tell that whatever that last hit was has knocked the dude out. He doesn't continue with follow-up strikes. And that's one of the things that I find hard. I know some people will argue that like you got to make sure the person's out so that you can win, like it's a combat sport. But I also feel like there has to be like a respect for the other person's life like moment. So I like that I see him doing that.
kickboxing would once again become the priority for him, and he would not make another walk to the cage for about 3.5 years. But when he did, it was clear that Pereira was becoming a different fighter entirely. Returning to LFA in late 2020, Pereira scored a first-round knockout, earning the attention of Dana White and the UFC in the process. During this time, Israel Adesanya, his old rival, had carved out a run of dominance in MMA.
Yeah, I was gonna say when I was kind of hearing stuff, I felt like I was hearing Adesanya a lot. I guess that would have been like 4 or 5 years ago now, maybe.
Becoming the UFC middleweight champion and going undefeated in the division. And when the news came that the UFC were taking a chance on the 34-year-old kickboxer, it seemed like the promotion was hoping to feed him to the last style bender at some point. But his first 2 UFC bouts were undoubtedly impressive and showcased a guy who was very serious about fighting, someone who was looking to round out his game and attempt to deal with the more diverse threats that the top middleweights would bring. After knocking out Andreas Mihailidis in the second round of his debut with a flying knee, and putting in 3 solid rounds against Bruno Silva in his follow-up appearance, the UFC decided to take a gamble on Pereira, giving him...
Look, I've asked this before in a different video. What's the hit that you would least want to take? You know, you throw all the punches in there, throw all the kicks in there, and then you add elbow, knee. What would you least want to get hit by? I feel like the knee is like, that's the last thing I want to take. Let me know what your answer would be.
Against Bruno Silva in his follow-up appearance, the UFC decided to take a gamble on Pereira, giving him a top 5 middleweight fighter. Time was clearly against Dana White and his team, and if they wanted to book a rematch between Alex Pereira and Israel Adesanya in the UFC, they would have to act fast. Sean Strickland was chosen as his 3rd UFC opponent, a major step up in competition, but also one that would potentially answer a lot of questions about Pereira's fighting style. Instead, Strickland chose to stand with the more experienced striker that stood before him. This, as it turned out, was not a great idea. It didn't take long for Pereira to figure out
I feel like that's a pride thing.
Sean Strickland's rhythm, and once he did, he caught Strickland on the chin with a vicious left hand before finishing him off just seconds later, earning another highlight reel knockout. As the fight showed, Pereira has a clear striking advantage over the vast majority of middleweights. His timing, his traps, and his clean technique all seem to be on a different level. The longer you spend standing with him, the more time he has to figure out your game. And if you don't take him out of his element, there's a good chance that you're going to get finished. Following his impressive win, the UFC's experiment was paying off, and all of a sudden, a new contender had been established at 185 pounds, a fighter who had earned his place in the top 10 with a victory over a big name. Sure, a fight with Sean Strickland was perhaps the best stylistic matchup that he could have gotten in the top 10, but either way, Pereira showed up on a pay-per-view main card and defeated a top middleweight in stunning fashion. As it turned out,
Hey man, look, people try to qualify things all the time. A win is a win. Like he went to a place where like he wasn't in his element. He's, you know, going up against a name that probably has a lot more momentum and a lot more backing, and like it's impressive. Don't try to qualify it.
the headliner on the same card was Israel Adesanya himself, and as he quite easily dealt with the challenge of Jared Cannonier, it became clear that there was an opening for a fresh challenge. And so the UFC 281 main event contest was born. It's a trilogy fight several years in the making, and one that will conclude a saga that has taken place across two different sports. Israel Adesanya will, of course, be the betting favorite going in, but Alex Pereira will probably have a mental edge heading into their third meeting. He might struggle with the Robert Whitakers and Marvin Vettoris of the division, but in there with Israel Adesanya, a pure striker like himself, it definitely evens the playing field. And if there's one thing we can say with confidence, it's that Israel Adesanya will probably come out with a less conservative approach this time around, especially with a guy like Alex Pereira standing across from him. And that will just about do it for this video. But who do you think will get their hand raised in the UFC 281 main event? Will it be the tried and tested middleweight champion Israel Adesanya who gets his revenge? Or will Alex Pereira go 3-0 over the last stylebender across two different sports? Luckily, we won't have to wait long to find out. As always, if you guys enjoyed the video, please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Apart from that, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.
I mean, obviously at this point, those fights have already happened, but now I really want to watch a video about their 4-fight story. Like, I think that would be really fun to watch now. So if you guys could do me a favor, comment down below, let me know what the best video to watch would be. I see one down here. There's from the Fighting Business, which one of you commented was a good channel. It's called In-Depth Rivalry, Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira. So let me know if that's a good video to watch. If it is, I will check that out next. Other than that, if you guys are still here, I appreciate you spending your time with me. I hope you have an amazing day, and I will see you next time.